Indiana Disability History Project, Indiana Institute on Disability and Community, Indiana University. Some get better services and equipment than others. Mr. and Mrs. Blair.
I am originally and still is a general contractor, and we built some homes and a couple of subdivisions in the city. And as time progressed on, the disease glaucoma kind of succumbed and taken over my eyes. And my wife, at one point, I thought that I was going to have to just sit at my desk and look out the window for a while. My wife wouldn't allow me to do that, so I ended up going down to a training facility to get training for vision impairment and healthy living. And I learned all I could learn, and I thought that it was a great opportunity to bring some of that technology back to the Northwest, because I noticed there was a lot of advertisements and a lot of different programs that was available for the vision impaired and the blind in the south of the state. And I was kind of upset that there was not anything in the north. My wife and I, as we went through the process and we started thinking about the various things that was missing in the northwest of the state, we decided to, it was kind of I kind of had a mind of a kind of a club, but we ended up taking the vision a little bit a step further, and my wife and I decided to open up the Blind Social Center. You look at what's available and what's been offered in the system. Some gets better equipment and better services than others.
When Tony went to get his training in Indianapolis, there was an situation that came up, and I kind of asked myself, I'm like, well, why is it so different for you versus the other Caucasian individual that was at the training session as well? They offered each individual, blind individual, they were offered a keyboard to their choosing.
Wow.
And one of the other guys that was there, he selected a keyboard that I know, what was the cost of it? Like,
I know that like keyboard was expensive.
$800 keyboard. And when Tony went to select his keyboard, they told him, "Oh, you have a budget. You can't go over this amount."
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Shit,
why is there a
his
difference?
Keyboard costs more than my whole system.
Yes. And it's like, I'm not understanding that. So again, it's another one of those jolt to our, just our understanding of why we as Black individuals always have to say,
we have to settle
for what they give us. And it's just really just, it's just an unfair thing. And it happens quite often as a Black individual in this current
time.
And even prior to
it has been a while, because I've been blind for over 12 years.
Yes, 12
and
years.
I experienced those things then, and I see those things still occurring.
Yeah. And it's very disheartening sometimes. But as a Black individual, we know that what we desire will come to us when it's time for it to come to us. Even though we can push, it doesn't materialize until, unfortunately, the Caucasian sector of the world, what we see daily, say, okay, you can have it. When we as Blacks apply for different services, we would like to get the same treatment as the next person,
or at least the same consideration.
Same consideration as the next person. Funding is one of the biggest
things that we have faced. We live in a distressed area. Funding is very, very difficult for us here in the North.
I've taken the time, which it takes a lot of time to write a grant, because a grant in expressing your thoughts and what you would like to apply in terms of your services has to be worded a certain way for that particular grant reader to accept? Well, we have to look at the barrier of language and communication
Yeah, that's a
per
problem.
our ethnic races.
That's a problem.
The terminology that
Yeah.
is used on one sector of the world is not used
In
in
the Black
the urban community. We all have different languages that we speak in terms of the vocabulary
And the
that we
understanding.
use and the understanding of that vocabulary that we use.
We're not complainers, we're doers. We look at a problem, we try to figure out how to fix it.
And that's
We're
what
more
I say.
doers than complainers. We don't complain. I don't complain about what's not there and somebody doing it. What are you going to allow me to do? I just don't want to be overlooked as if I'm unqualified to do certain things. And I think the same thing about even when it comes to funding. Still love the city and still doing all that we can do for the city. And that's about what we are. We embarked upon a opportunity to work in the field of the vision impaired and blindness. So that's what we're doing.
Music, Redwood Trail. Produced by Indiana Institute on Disability and Community, Center for Health Equity. Funded by the Indiana Governor's Council for People with Disabilities. Copyright 2021, the Trustees of Indiana University.